So today we are going to continue with what we've been reading for the last couple of months. Actually, 1 month. That is the Transcendental Katha of Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. Could you translate what I said just now? Yes, so Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, his Harikatha is completely astonishing. Astonishing. Completely adbhuta. Amazing. His katha. And we're experiencing that because I'm reading his very own words. How he expressed all of these transcendental explanations, siddhanta, everything. And actually, all around the world, in all different languages, all the devotees, they are now reading, and they have been reading already for the last 30 years. They've been reading the Harikatha of Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. So he is one of the most important acharyas in our modern day Rupanuga Guru Varga. And he is my own Siksha Guru. So now I'm going to begin because we're reading his book, The Golden Volcano of Divine Love. And this is referring to who? This is referring to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is like a golden volcano. And just like a volcano, sometimes it erupts, and when it erupts, there's like an explosion. And then out from the top of the volcano comes lava. You have that same word in Russian, lava? So, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he compared Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to a golden volcano, and he was erupting with ecstatic love of Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Understand? Da? Panimayatya. Da. But what was the lava? What was the lava that came from the lotus mouth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was completely, deeply absorbed in all these ecstatic moods? What was the lava? It was his instructions, what he spoke at the very end of his manifest presence in this world. The instructions that he spoke are 8 shlokas. 8 verses. And these verses are called Sikshastakam. What does Sikshastakam mean? It means 8 instructions. Ashtakam. 8 instructions. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he spoke these 8 verses. And these 8 verses are the life and soul of all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Life and soul. So therefore our acharyas, like Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. They all gave commentary on the deep meaning of these 8 verses of Shikshastakam. I was very fortunate when I was a new devotee in 1970, when I was only 18 years old, and I came to live in the Hare Krishna temple in America. And in the early period of our movement, we didn't have so many books. Not like now. We have volumes, hundreds of volumes of very important literature. But at that time, Srila Prabhupada was only starting his movement. And Srila Prabhupada had brought from India only 3 books, 3 volumes. What was that? Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, the king of all Shastras. Grantaraj, the king of all Shastras. So he decided that he was going to come to the West and he was going to begin introducing the Srimad Bhagavatam to the whole world, to the Western world, who had never heard of Srimad Bhagavatam. They had never heard of Krishna. They had never heard of the Vedas. Nothing. But he brought Srimad Bhagavatam with him. So, Srila Prabhupada, when he came in 1965, his first year in America was very difficult. He had barely any support, but alone he was beginning to give this message to people by holding classes, by performing kirtan only with 1 pair of kartals. And Srila Prabhupada also recorded his kirtan because somebody had given him a very old tape recorder. Now the new generation doesn't even know what this is, what it means, tape recorder. But the first generation of recording had very big round spools of this tape. And it could record sound and it could play back sound. Srila Prabhupada, this is the first time in his life that he had such a device. New technology at that time. So, Srila Prabhupada actually began to record his classes. Even when there's only 2 people, 3 people who came into the room, Srila Prabhupada began to record his classes and also his kirtan. We are so fortunate that we have those recordings. Yes. And then, gradually, after almost a whole year of struggling, gradually there came a few people who were very interested to hear, and they were attracted. And then, in the summer of 1966, the month of June, when the summer was just beginning in America, then Srila Prabhupada, they helped him to move into his own residence, which was just simply like an ordinary shop where people rent that space and they sell whatever they want to sell. It's a shop. Just 1 room and 1 bathroom there. But behind that shop Actually, the length of the room was about as long as this room. That we have gone there, to that location in New York City. And that room is about like this wide, from here to there, and about this long. And that's where Srila Prabhupada began to give regular classes. And so many people started to come. And after a few devotees came who were just very new, maybe they were devotees for 1 month, 2 months, something like that. Now Srila Prabhupada wanted to bring the chanting into the public area. So they went, the devotees, and it's also recorded on video. We can actually see that video where Prabhupada is sitting and chanting in the park, and his disciples, a few of them, are standing up and they're dancing in a circle, maybe 4 or 5 devotees. And how were they dancing? They were dancing as Srila Prabhupada taught them to dance. Srila Prabhupada taught them how to dance like Lord Chaitanya danced. The devotees, they learned how to do that dance. And that dance was 1 step in front with both arms raised, and then the other step there, back and forth, like this. And that was before they even started jumping up and down in the kirtans. And you can see this in the video recording in that park, Tompkins Square Park. A husband and wife who were studying filmmaking, they came and they recorded that, and they recorded interviews with the devotees and Srila Prabhupada.
They call it the Swami step?
Well, that's what I was just about to say. The devotees, they named this dance, because in the 1960s, this is the beginning of the hippie era, and so many different kinds of dances started in America, and way before that even, the twist, and they had so many names for these different movements of the body, right? But the devotees, this very simple dance step, and they called it the Swami step. The Swami step. So you see it on that film where they're going in a circle, and even some of the people who were watching, they got up some courage and they joined into this little circle of going around and around in front of Prabhupada. And you can see there's so many people who are standing and they're watching. Also Babushki from Ukraine, because at that time in New York City there were many Ukrainians who had moved there. So you can see they're wearing the scarf like the old ladies. You see? So all of this is there. It's going on right in public. Amazing, amazing, amazing thing. The first time in the Western world, a public kirtan in a public place with hundreds of people moving around everywhere. And that's captured on camera. How historical. So, and at that time Prabhupada didn't have any mridanga drums from India. And he barely, I think, just had one little pair of kartals. But someone gave to him, maybe he had 2 or 3 pairs, I'm not sure. But someone gave to him a small Western style drum with small heads, 2 heads. And that was a popular drum at that time. It was called a bongo drum. Bongo. And it had kind of a loud sound when you hit the small heads. They were very tight, but it was only played by hand. And Srila Prabhupada started to play that bongo drum. And guess what? It's recorded on his first record album that was made in the studio in New York. That was what Prabhupada was playing. And we all have heard that hundreds and hundreds of times, that kirtan of Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada is playing like... It wasn't a mridanga. He didn't have them yet. Yes. And the way he plays that, it just completely carries you away. You start floating. And they had the devotees who were there in the studio. One of them was playing a harmonium, but they didn't know how to play harmonium. So what they did was they just opened it up and took those little wire things off of one or two of the keys, and they just used it as a drone. And they also had a tambura. Somehow they had a tambura, which just made a drone sound. So in this way, Prabhupada recorded the most amazing kirtan. You know, in recording studios, generally they do many what they call takes, where they try it once and then they think, no, that's not, and then they do it again, then they do it again, like that. Prabhupada did only once. Only once. And it's perfect. And not only that, but even the devotees who are chanting in the background, they're also singing properly in unison, everything like that, you know. So that record, we called it the Happening album, because I think the company's name was Happening or something like that, but we named it the Happening album. And over across the ocean in United Kingdom, good old sunny England, there was the most famous musicians in the whole world. At that time, they were the most famous, not just musicians, practically the most famous celebrities in the whole world. I was just showing that to Shamapriya the other day, how they arrived in America, how there were thousands of people and girls screaming. Then they came into a stadium 1 or 2 years later, after touring the whole world, and the whole stadium was full of screaming. They couldn't even hear themselves singing.
My mom said that she remembers going to the movie theater.
Which theater?
The movie theater. To see
Yeah.
the Beatles movie.
Yeah.
And she said that during the whole movie, the girls would be screaming. You couldn't hear what they were saying.
That's right. I also saw it in a movie theater. Yeah. So what a phenomena, you know. What later on, I mean, I reflected on all that. Krishna was doing something to the jivas. He was making them very eager, you know. Because when someone is screaming, they want something really bad, you know. So it just so happened that Srila Prabhupada, his record album, somehow, because they're musicians and they have connections all over the world, they found out, George Harrison especially found out, because he was interested in Indian music. And he had started to study the sitar from a very famous musician, Ravi Shankar. Yeah. So in this way, that record album, George Harrison found out that there's this Swami who's teaching how all this special mantra chanting, you know. And he was into mantras at that time, transcendental meditation and all of that. So he was teaching all of that. So he ordered 100 copies of that record, like 2 years before Prabhupada, maybe 1 year, 1.5 years, before Prabhupada came the first time to England. And George Harrison tells the story that he and John Lennon, just the two of them, they rented a boat And they were sailing around in this boat, with a captain, of course, in the Greek islands. So in the summer, very beautiful, beautiful weather, Mediterranean. And he and John Lennon had a record player, and they put that record album on, and they just got into it. They played it again and again, the Maha Mantra, again and again and again, over and over. George Harrison says they did that for like 10 hours, and they were just like blasted. So these are the histories. These are the histories. How Krishna, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent his pure devotee, and how that message began to take root in the whole Western world. So those original recordings from that time are extremely rare treasures that we all have. Yes. So, not only that, all of our acharyas of the present day, they've utilized the technology. And the technology has advanced more. And now you can have all of their recordings on a tiny little card, half the size of your fingernail, that you put into your phone. And you can have all the books, all the audio, all the videos, 1 terabyte. And anyone can have that anywhere. Just imagine. So I've told this before, and I'm going to repeat it again, that Srila Gurudev told this. Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj told that this Kali Yuga is the Kali Yuga out of 1,000 different Kali Yugas in a day of Brahma. There are 1,000 Yuga cycles of the 4 Yugas in one 12-hour period of Brahma's day. That's called his Kalpa. And his night is the same, his 12 hours night. But only one Kali Yuga, Krishna himself, Swayam Bhagavan, the source of all incarnations, of all expansions, of all avatars, Krishna himself. He comes at the end of the Dwapara Yuga in one day of Brahma. In only once in that entire day of Brahma. And how long is that day of Brahma? In earthly calculation, 4,320,000,000 years. And that's the 12 hours, and then 4,320,000,000 is the 12 hours of the night. So that's 8.6 approximately billion years. That's very, 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 very extremely rare. But Krishna himself is coming into this world as Nandanandan, Yashodanandan, Brajendranandan, Shyama Sundar, and he plays his pastimes in Vrindavan. His whole spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, descends onto our planet when he comes. And then, only a couple of thousand years later, he appears again as what? The golden avatar. Golden color. But he's exactly the same person. He's Krishna. He's the source of all incarnations. And that is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that is where we are now living in his birthplace here. Astonishing that all of us, wandering jivas in the material universe for millions of lifetimes, have first of all even gotten a human birth. And what to speak of in that human birth? Coming directly in contact with the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his authorized disciplic succession of pure devotees, called the Rupanuga Guru Varga. There is no good fortune that can compare with this. anywhere in the universe, on any planet in the universe. Even the demigods who live for millions of years, they're extremely unfortunate in comparison. And they are aware of that. They know that. Yes. They know that they're unfortunate. And they know that those who are down on the earth planet where Mahaprabhu's mission is going on, they're much more fortunate. So do you know what our Prabhupada told us? Our Prabhupada told us, as his movement began to expand, and now he also introduced Varnashram Dharma, and there were many, many devotees who became grihastas, and then they began to have children. And Srila Prabhupada at that time, he said, you should understand that this movement is so auspicious that the demigods in the heavenly planets are waiting in line to take birth in ISKCON. Meaning what? ISKCON means Krishna Mahaprabhu's movement. There are many, many societies, Gaudiya Math, ISKCON, this, that, but that means Mahaprabhu's movement. They're waiting to take birth. So, we cannot estimate the good fortune of coming in contact with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental movement. So I was saying that Srila Prabhupada in the beginning, he came only with what? 3 books. He didn't have other books yet at that time. No other books had been printed yet. But he worked very hard in Vrindavan, in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, translating, writing the purports to the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And even though the printing quality in India was far inferior to the standard and quality of the printing in the West, that was our first books. We held them in our hands. We read from those very books that Prabhupada brought. Either Prabhupada brought them or Srila Narayan Maharaj sent them. And by that time, probably it was the books of Srila Narayan Maharaj that were sent by him. He completed all the printing that wasn't yet completed. And then he packaged them up and sent them to Prabhupada at 26 2nd Avenue. Yes. And also, Prabhupada was ordering mridangas. And I remember in 1970, when we moved into this new, nice, bigger house, a big house. Actually, it was an old people's home. The devotees converted it into a very nice temple, and that's where Srila Prabhupada came and visited the first time. And I remember the day, like 1 month after we moved in, all of a sudden, there was a big announcement, all the devotees, come. And a truck had come to deliver crates that had been sent from India, like wooden crates with all kinds of padding inside with straw and this and that. And there was like 8 or 10 mridangas. Yes. I was there on the day when those mridanga drums arrived. Yes. So many stories. So, Srila Prabhupada, he wanted to give the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he decided to give first of all the Srimad Bhagavatam because that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached. And therefore, in the introduction to the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada wrote, I forget what it says in English, but the title of the section, just a little bit after the introduction, then there's a whole long section, at least 20 or 25 pages long, where Prabhupada describes the life and the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that any of his disciples or anybody that's reading that will hear the name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and understand that this is a historical, very great personality who preached this message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, therefore, in the just after the introduction, then Srila Prabhupada put Sikshastakam, the 8 verses of the Sikshastakam there, before it opened up into the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, that Sikshastakam, every devotee should memorize all 8 verses. Every devotee should commit them to their memory. They should try to recite all 8 shlokas every day of Sikshastakam. I did that. We all did that in the old temples. Right after Mangalartik every day. We would say it in Sanskrit and then we would say the English. So, by beginning that practice, although that's like a mechanical, you're memorizing something. But by memorizing that, now this is the essence of all the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And now the rest of your life you will spend examining and going deeper and deeper and deeper into those teachings of those 8 verses. So we're very lucky that our acharyas have given those commentaries, and Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, one of the great acharyas of our modern day, he gave his personal explanation of those verses in an extremely wonderful way after he had digested everything that he heard from all the previous acharyas and their commentaries on Sikshastakam, and he gave Sikshastakam to us. So how lucky we are. Huh? Yes. Udachlivi. Udachlivi means fortunate. Cannot count our good fortune. So we're going to begin. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Vinod Bihari Jiu Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai, Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai, Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai, Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Sri Pancha Tattva Ki Jai, Sri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dvarashavanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dham Ki Jai, Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Samkirtana Ki Jai, Harinam Mahamantra Ki Jai, Shri Pancha Tattva Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Anything? Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Gurudeva, 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 Jaya Gurudeva. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Shri Gurun dinataranam. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Namo mahabhadanaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namane gaura trise namah. Nityanandam namastubhyam prema ananda pradayane kalo kalamashanashaya janava pataye namah. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasyacha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Sachavachai Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtotarasata Sri Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I offer my Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of all my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, to all of my Siksha Guru Varga, and my Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So today's verse is the third shloka. And this shloka is really our entryway into real bhakti. Without following this shloka, without imbibing the meaning of this shloka, no one can chant pure Krishna Nam. No one. Impossible, impossible, impossible. Never, never, never. Nikagda, nikagda, nikagda. So, therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given it in the third verse. After the first shloka, which he tells that through this process of chanting the holy name of Krishna, we will become supremely victorious, and the holy name of Krishna will become victorious. Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Samkirtanam. Param Vijayate means supreme victory. Supreme victory. And as we've been hearing Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj expressing the meaning of that first shloka and explaining that there are 7 different effects which will take place in the devotee when he progresses through these stages and begins to approach the stage of bhav, and then finally the stage of Krishna Prem. So, the second shloka we read the other day, Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaivam Idrisha Mihajani Nanuragaha. And how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling us that humility and feeling oneself to be completely worthless. Why? Because not having any qualification to chant the pure name of Krishna. But still lamenting that, oh, I am so unfortunate. You have come in your most merciful manifestation, O Krishna. You have manifested in the form of sound vibration. And you have made yourself very easy to associate with you in the form of your eternal holy names. Not only that, your holy name is full of all of your transcendental potencies, all of your Shakti. Your holy name is full of that. And you have not given any kind of restrictions in chanting. No restriction, chanting, time, place, or circumstance. No. But only very, very unfortunate thing is that I don't appreciate. I have no attraction. Na anurag. Anurag means attraction, attachment. I have no attraction. So I am so unfortunate. That mood is the prelude to the third shloka. Without going through that mood of lamentation and feeling oneself absolutely disqualified, you cannot enter the third shloka. And this third shloka, Mahaprabhu is telling us by following four different instructions that are given in this very small verse. By following that, what will happen? Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. What does that mean? Do you know, Gauranga, the meaning of that? Kirtaniya Sada Hari. With what? Chant what?
Sing Kirtan always, also.
That's right. Sada means always. Sada. And Kirtaniya Sada Hari. The names of Krishna. Hari. Do we have examples of our great, great acharyas who became so much overwhelmed with ecstatic love by chanting they could not stop? Do we have examples? Yes? Who? Namacharya Haridas Thakur, Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, all the 6 Goswamis, coming down in our line, hundreds and hundreds of great pure Vaishnava devotees. They could not stop chanting. Why? Because they had these qualifications of this third shloka, and therefore they progressed to the highest stages of chanting. We cannot enter that without this. So, what is Mahaprabhu telling us in the third shloka? He is saying, Trinad api sunichena tororiva sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Very short, very concise, this verse. Only 4 instructions. So he is telling, Trinada pi sunichena. One who is humbler than a blade of grass. Why did Mahaprabhu select this example, this analogy? A blade of grass. Do you know why? Because where do we see the blade of grass? On the ground. You don't see the blades of grass flying in the air. They're on the ground. And what happens to those blades of grass? People step on them. Animals step on them. Machines can roll over them. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is using the word trina. Trina means blade of grass. Trinad api sunichena. Sunichena means lower. Sunich. So to consider oneself to be lower than a blade of grass, that's hard for us to do. That's really hard for us with our big false egos. Ahankar. I, me, mine. And it's all false. It's all illusion. Every single thought is false and illusory. Not true. I am such and such. I'm very powerful. I'm very beautiful. I'm very intelligent. I. And just see what's mine. So everything around me, I'm becoming the controller of so many people, of so many things. So because of our false ego, we can't even identify at all with this first instruction, that you should consider yourself to be lower than a blade of grass. That's a hard one to swallow. But it's true. We have to realize that we are simply a tiny, insignificant jivatma out of infinite numbers of jivatmas. Yes, we're eternal. Yes, our constitutional nature is indestructible. But now we are covered by the illusory energy of Maya. And now we are thinking what? What are we thinking now? No, but what are we thinking now? In this condition of life? Yes, we are the master of everything we see in this world. I'm the master. So that's why everyone fights. That's why everyone fights. Because one wants to supersede the other, and one wants to control the other and exploit. Individually and collectively. Srila Prabhupada always made that point. Individual and collective. False ego. So, I want to read how Srila Sridhar Maharaj is expressing this. So one who is humbler than a blade of grass, who is more forbearing, that means tolerant, more forbearing than a tree. So we've been compared to a blade of grass and now a tree. And who gives all due honor and respect to all others. And at the same time, he doesn't desire any respect to come to himself. Those are the four. And if someone can chant in this humble state of mind, then he is qualified to always chant the holy name of Krishna. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj is telling us now that we should mainly couch ourselves in this mood. We should think of ourselves as the meanest of the mean. That's a old British way. It means the most insignificant of the most insignificant. Meanest of the mean. Smallest of the small. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he has given his analysis of the meaning of this verse as follows. Even a blade of grass has its value. Does a blade of grass have some value? Yeah, some. But we do not even have as much value as a blade of grass. No? Swallow that one. We have no positive value. It is one thing if a man is not educated. That is one thing. He's not educated, but a madman is worse than an uneducated person. Right? Right? A madman. He's much worse. That madman, he can think. He's able to think, but only abnormally. He cannot think normally. So therefore, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I have some consciousness and some intelligence, but it is all misdirected. A blade of grass has no misdirection. Get that? A blade of grass has no misdirection. When it is trampled upon, it has no tendency to spring back in the opposite direction. The blade of grass is not getting stepped on and then thinking to itself, who is this? Stepped on me. I'm going to get back up. No. It doesn't have any misdirection. A blade of grass can be blown by the wind here and there by a storm, or it can be by the external environment. But I will always be reluctant to go in a particular direction. So obstinate, so reluctant. If the waves of the environment want to take me in a particular direction, I'll try to oppose those waves. If you really consider my value, this is all Bhaktivinoda Thakur's contemplation that he's saying here. If you really consider my value, my position is lower than a blade of grass because I have an opposing tendency. Opposing tendency. So when we want to bring ourselves in a closer relationship with the infinite goodness, we want to bring ourselves in a closer relationship with the infinite goodness, we should think, I have no value. Rather, my value is negative. It is my tendency to oppose the Lord's grace. If Krishna wants to grace me, I try to resist. I am constituted of such an element that I commit spiritual suicide. That's what I'm constituted of. Committing spiritual suicide. Now, Krishna comes to grace me, but I oppose him. The energy that is within me tries for suicide. This is my position. But a blade of grass won't oppose anyone. I have such a nasty position. End of the quote. So we must realize that we are in such a predicament. And with this concern, we may accept the goodness of the absolute truth in the form of His holy name. We should not think that the path will be very smooth. No. We should not think that the path will be very smooth. So many troubles may come from outside. When the devotees go to chant Hare Krishna in the street, many people come and they shout, "Hey, you monkeys, red-faced monkeys." So many forms of hindrances and opposition will come and try to affect us and to dissuade us from this path. But we must practice forbearance like that of a tree. Why has the example of a tree been given? It has been analyzed in this way. If no one pours any water on a tree, it does not protest. Oh, give me water. If anyone comes to disturb the tree, snatching its leaves, cutting its branches, or even chopping it down, a tree remains silent. It gives no opposition. We should try to see how insult that may happen to us, that we're insulted, poverty, punishment, or other unfavorable dealings, we should try to see how these are necessary to purify us. We should try to see that all these are necessary to try to purify us. And then with minimal punishment, we shall be released from material existence. What did we just hear Srila Sridhar Maharaj tell to us? Please tell me, O learned Vaishnavas, what did we just hear Srila Sridhar Maharaj say? That we should try to see in our life how all apparently negative situations come upon us, like being insulted, being stricken with poverty, being punished, or any other unfavorable dealings. What should we try to see in that? That these are necessary to purify us. And then, with that minimal punishment, because Krishna, He's not giving us full, just little token punishment. With minimal punishment, what will happen to us? If we can see everything like that, we shall be released from material existence. You'll be released, no longer bound. This is the process. So, through Krishna consciousness, we have connected with the highest object of life. We have connected with the highest fulfillment of life. What price are we ready to pay for that? What price are we ready to pay for that? The highest object of life, we're getting connected with that. We're getting connected with the highest fulfillment of life. So what price are we ready to pay for that? Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, it is inconceivable. It is inconceivable. Whatever little demands may be exacted from us, we must accept it with a smiling face and considering the highest goal. That's what we have to think. Considering this highest goal that we are trying to attain, this highest object of our life, highest fulfillment of our life, we should very happily, with a smiling face, we should accept whatever little demands may be exacted from us. If we are really confident, and if we have faith in our bright future, then we can gladly pay what little price nature wants to take from us. Got that? Panimayatya. Yeah. That's the test of our faith. That's the test of our faith. if we're really confident, we're completely convinced, and if we really have faith in our bright future, that this is waiting for us, then we can gladly pay what little price that nature wants to take from us. Gladly. Sometimes I use the example that if a person comes along and says, I am willing to give $10 million to any person who can climb this extremely difficult mountain, right? You know how many people are going to come? Hundreds and thousands are going to come. And you know what they're going to go through? Oh my God. I saw an article once on people that want to climb Mount Everest. Do you know how many people die along the way? It's extremely dangerous. And even though there's hundreds of people at a certain time of the year, when it starts to get a little warmer up there, then it's possible. But in the whole season, the snow, you cannot climb. So many people are trying. But there's certain time limitations that if you don't pass by this place by a certain time, you're not going to be able to get back down from there in time, and you'll die. Yes. But people are doing that, and not even for money. What are they doing it for? Prestige. I climbed Mount Everest. You see. So for these trifling things, of temporary things of this world, who's going to remember you 100 years from now, even 10 years from now, that, oh, you climbed Mount Everest? Nobody will remember. And what great thing is that? Mountain goats are climbing it all the time. Eagles and great birds are flying up there and landing all the time. What's the big thing you have done? So, you should be glad to pay whatever little price that nature wants to take from us. So now, here's the section which is titled, Krishna, I shall teach you a lesson. Do you know who spoke those words? Do you know who spoke these words? Krishna, I shall teach you a lesson. Yes. Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, the spiritual master of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he spoke these words.
When he was being tortured by Navadvip. When he was being tortured by Navadvip. When he was being tortured by inhabitants of the Navadvip,
yeah.
They used to throw some stones.
Yes, yes.
And he did not tell anyone anything, and he told simply, I will go to Mother Jashoda and eat from Mother.
Yes. So now we are going to hear about his behavior. Once, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, the spiritual master of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was going through the town of Navadvip. And he was begging a little rice from different houses. This is called Madhukari. All the great saints since the beginning of time, they all did this. But Prabhupada said now in the Western world you cannot do. You'll get arrested. So therefore he devised book distribution. So he was going through the town of Navadvip and he was begging a little rice from door to door, different houses. And then the village people, sometimes they would attack or insult devotees. And as he was going to his quarters, they did not spare even such an exalted soul. Can you imagine? They didn't spare even him. I mean, they do that with so many different so-called sadhus even. Here is the topmost Mahabhagavad Vaishnava, and they're doing that with him. Now, some boys, young boys, they were pelting him with stones. They were throwing dirt at him. And then what did he do? He remarked, "Krishna, you are cruelly dealing with me." Did he say anything about those boys? No. He's talking directly with Krishna. "Krishna, you are dealing with me. I shall complain to your mother Yashoda about you, Krishna. I shall complain to your mother Yashoda." That was his outlook. And in that way he harmonized everything. We should learn to see Krishna in anything that comes to disturb or attack us. We should learn to see Krishna in anything that comes to disturb or to attack us. In philosophical calculation, of course, without God's will, nothing can happen. Is that true or not true? Do you all believe that in this room? Every single one of you, do you believe that nothing can happen? Nothing. Not a blade of grass, not a leaf on a tree can move without the will of Krishna, without the sanction of Krishna. It is true. Not an atomic particle. So, philosophically, God's will is required for anything to happen to us. So therefore, a devotee sees in a very concrete way, a devotee sees, "Oh Krishna, you are backing these children. You are disturbing me. And I shall teach you a lesson. I know how to deal with you. I shall complain to Mother Yashoda, and she will chastise you, O Krishna." Can we imitate that? Huh? No, of course not. We cannot imitate that. But we can think like that. That Krishna is doing this. I should accept it humbly. You see? Now the advanced devotees, the very advanced devotees, they are established in the consciousness that Krishna is behind everything, and they take everything in that way. They accept everything in that way, that Krishna is behind everything. This attitude is our beacon light, our shining light, this attitude. Why? For this shining beacon light, it will guide us to adjust ourselves with those things that are apparently unfavorable to us. Yeah? To adjust ourselves. A sweet adjustment is found there. Sweet adjustment. And so we are advised to be more tolerant than a tree. We may not give any opposition, but still opposition will come to disturb us, and we must forbear. And we must show our respect to others. That's a big one. We must show our respect to others. Prestige is the greatest and the most subtle enemy of the devotee. Prestige is the greatest and the most subtle enemy of the devotee of Krishna. Prestige. Pride. Pride is the worst enemy for the devotee of Krishna. And pride ultimately takes one to the conclusion of who? The Mayavadis, the monists. Pride. They say, Soham, I am. They don't say, Dasoham. No, they say, Soham, I am. Do they say, Dasoham, I am subordinate, I am Das? No. But they say, I am the supreme element. I am that. I am he. And they eliminate from their consideration the fact that we are tiny and we're suffering in misery. This is the most ridiculous thing. They have such a big ego. I am the supreme controller. But here you are suffering like a dog. There are many examples we've heard our acharyas telling of persons like this. So all these practical things, they are ignored by the Mayavadis, by the impersonalists. They're ignored. These are practical, honest things. But position, pratishta, ego, this is our worst enemy. In this verse, we're advised to deal with the prestige and with position in a special way. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, you must not desire respect from anyone. You must not. Or, you must not even desire from the environment itself to be respected. And at the same time, you must give prestige to everyone and everything in the environment according to its position. Show respect, but don't desire any respect from outside. We must be very particular about this, because pride is our hidden enemy. Pride is our worst enemy. Our worst enemy. If we can somehow avoid or conquer this enemy, we will be able to enter into the slave area of Krishna. Now you're going to hear about the slave area of Krishna. Yes. Yes, if we can somehow avoid or conquer this enemy, then we will be able to enter into the slave area of Krishna, and we will be able to join those who have given their lives wholesale in sacrifice to Him. Yes. The general meaning of this verse is, general meaning, never seek position or prestige from any quarter. And at the same time, give honor to one and all, according to your understanding. That's the general. So when our spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he went to Vrindavan in the early 1930s, he rode a motor car. You know how rare they were in India at that time? Motor cars in the early 1930s. So in those days, this was unheard of for a saint, for a pure sadhu to ride in the motor car. Unheard of. So one day, a priest insulted our guru by deprecating the position of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, who is the preceptor of our highest conception of spiritual achievement. Raghunath Das Goswami is. But this one priest, he began to deprecate, to insult the position of Raghunath Das Goswami. So that priest, he boasted, we are not only residents of the Holy Land, but we are members of the caste of high priests, Brahmanas. Therefore, we can offer our benedictions to Das Goswami. He was born in a low-class family, and he himself asked such a benediction from us. Caste Goswamis. Imagine. Now, of course, in great humility, Das Goswami once prayed in his Manasiksha, first slok, Guru Goshte Goshtalaishu Sujane Bushuragane. So he's praying to his mind. Srila Sridhar Maharaj is citing this, that he's praying, O mind, my brother, I fall at your feet and I implore you, give up all pride and always taste ecstatic love while remembering the divine guide, while remembering the holy abode of Vrindavan, the cowherds, the milkmaids of Braja, the loving devotees of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, and by remembering the gods on the earth, pure brahmanas, the Gayatri Mantra, the holy names of Sri Krishna, and the divine youthful couple of Braj, Shri Radha Govinda Sundar. So now that priest, he remarked, we are residents of the holy abode of Vrindavan, and Brahmins as well. So we are in a position to give benedictions to Raghunath Das Goswami. Upon hearing these words, our Guru Maharaj, who was at Radhakund at that time, he began fasting. He remarked, I have to hear this. I have to hear this. This fellow is under the control of lust, anger, and greed. And he says that he can show his grace to Das Goswami, the most respected preceptor in our line, and I am to hear that? But without retaliating against his remarks, he decided to fast. We also stopped eating, and our whole camp began fasting. Then a local gentleman who came to know that the whole camp was fasting, he managed to find the blasphemous priest and to bring him to our Guru Maharaj. And that priest begged to be pardoned. Our Guru Maharaj was satisfied, and after showing him some respect, he finally broke his fast. At that time, someone told our Guru Maharaj, they are ignorant fools. Why should you be so much affected by his words? You should ignore it. But our Guru Maharaj said, if I were an ordinary Babaji and I heard such a remark, I could simply cover my ears and go away. But I am playing the part of an acharya, one who teaches by example. So what justification do I have for riding in a motor car if I do not oppose the remarks against my Gurudev? Repeatedly he used this expression. Why am I driving a motor car here in Vrindavan? He said, had I been a Niskinchan Babaji, a saint living in seclusion and wearing only a loincloth, then I would have given no opposition to this man. To save myself, I would simply leave the place and go elsewhere. But because I am riding in a big motor car, in the post of an acharya, of a teacher, I must defend the dignity of the great devotees. I have accepted this charge, and I can't evade these circumstances. I must face it, and I must do everything in my power that such things should not go on undetected or unopposed. Here's a photo. This is a photo of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in the back of this old car. So humility must be adjusted or modified in its practical application. Once when a Hare Krishna temple was attacked, a gun was used by the devotees to defend the temple. He's talking about New Vrindavan attack in West Virginia. He heard about this, so he's mentioning it. So later, there was a complaint among the local people. And they said, oh, they are humble? They are tolerant? Why have they crossed the advice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be humbler than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree? They can't be devotees. So many complaints were coming to me, but I defended them. Actually, maybe it was, I'm not sure, it might have been Vrindavan when they were attacked by gun. But maybe it was also here. It was here in Mayapur, 1977, when that took place. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj says that so many complaints were coming to him. He says, but I defended them by saying, no, they have done rightly. The instruction to be humbler than a blade of grass, it means that one should be humble to the devotee, not to a madman. So the general class of men, they are ignorant and they are mad. They do not know what is good or bad. So their consideration has no value. Who is qualified to judge whether a devotee is offering respect to all and not expecting any for himself? Who will judge whether he is really humble and tolerant? Madmen will judge? Never. Ignorant people will judge? Have they any sense to judge who is humble, who is tolerant, who is respectful to others? So there must be a standard by which to judge humility. We are interested in the criterion given by higher thinkers, not by the consideration of the ignorant masses. So, of course, anyone may deceive the ordinary public with superficial humility, isn't it? Somebody comes and they superficial humility they show, and they can deceive the ordinary public. But a show of humility is not real humility. It must come from the heart, and it must have a real purpose. Everything, humility, tolerance, and pridelessness, they must be considered by the judgment of a standard normal person, not by the ignorant who are like elephants, tigers, and jackals. They are like elephants, tigers, and jackals, ignorant people. Should they be allowed to judge what is humility? What is audacity? What is impertinence? Of course not. Should a devotee think, oh, the deity in the temple is about to be molested, but I shall stand by and do nothing. I should be humble and tolerant. A dog is entering the temple, I should show him respect. No, this is not real humility. We must have a normal conception of reality. We must not allow these anomalies to continue in the name of offering respects to others. We must not think that we may allow anyone to harm the devotees or molest the temple, that we shall allow the dog to enter the temple, and by doing this that we are humble and tolerant. We are showing all respects to others. We are not interested only in the physical meaning of the scriptures, but the real meaning. So that I am humble, that means that I am the slave of a Vaishnava. That's what it means. That I am the servant of the servant, the slave of the Vaishnava. And with that consciousness, we must proceed. So if anyone comes to molest my master, I should first sacrifice myself, thinking, because I am of the least importance, my sacrifice is no loss. I must sacrifice myself to maintain the dignity of my guru, the devotees to maintain the dignity of my guru and the dignity of the devotees, and the dignity of my Lord and his family. So we must understand what is to be honored. We offer our respects to the highest truth, to the Lord of Lords. So our dealings should be in consonance with that. If we always keep the highest conception of relativity within us, then we will see that we are the lowest. So if there is danger to our guardians, we shall sacrifice ourselves. All of this should be taken into account when trying to understand the meaning of humility. Not physical imitation, but genuine humility. It is a question of practical realization. Fame and honor must be given to the Lord and to His devotees, not to anyone else. So in the higher stages of devotion, of course, humility may have to be adjusted in another way for the Paramahansa Babajis, the topmost swan-like saints who have given up all connection with this material world. But in the preaching stage, then the second-class devotee must accept things differently. As our Guru Maharaj said, had I been in the role of a Babaji, of a non-assertive, reclusive saint, then I would have walked away from the place without offering any opposition. But when we are preaching, and we have taken the responsibility of leading so many souls to the domain of the Lord, then our adjustment must be made accordingly. And generally, we may be indifferent to those who are personally inimical to us. But when we preach on behalf of the Lord in an organized way, then our duty changes. We cannot be indifferent to antagonists. It is mentioned in the scriptures by Jiva Goswami that according to one's own particular status, these things should be taken into consideration and the necessary things should be done. He has given his decision that if the devotee has a position of power, if he is a king, and if someone repeatedly blasphemes a real Vaishnava or saintly person, then the king should enforce corporal punishment by banishing the offender from his state or by cutting out his tongue. Vaishnav Nindaka Jiva Hata. But that is not the duty for ordinary persons. If they act in such a way, there will be a riot. So we should not be eager to inflict physical punishment upon anyone. Hanuman is a Vaishnava, but he is seen to destroy so many lives. And the same is true of Arjuna and so many other devotees. Even Krishna and Ramchandra are also seen to kill so many demons in war. So, simply a physical show of meekness, it does not constitute the real meaning of humility. So when there is an insult to the Guru or to the Vaishnavas, then a devotee will oppose the blasphemers according to his might. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one of his songs, he says that we should not only tolerate the evil doings of others, and we should not only tolerate a disturbing environment, but we should do good to those by whom we are being tortured. So the example is given of a tree. One who is cutting the tree gets shade and comfort from the tree even while cutting it down. So in conclusion, he says that humility, mercy, respect for others, and renunciation of name and fame, these are the 4 qualifications for chanting the holy name of Krishna. We are the meanest of the mean, and we should always be conscious that we are beggars. We're beggars. And we should think, although I am a beggar, I've come to beg for the highest thing. Let no disturbance dissuade me from my attempt. And at the same time, our attitude toward the environment should be respectful. So in this way, by becoming educated in the Krishna conception of divinity, everyone should be given respect according to his position. This is the final paragraph. Everyone should be given respect according to his position. Why? By becoming educated in the Krishna conception of divinity. So, everyone should be given respect according to his position. It is the guiding instruction in the worship of the holy name, Nam Bhajan, that we must take the position of the slave, of the slave, of the slave of the Lord. If you want to chant the name of Krishna, then don't waste your energy with the trifling things of this world. Don't allow your attention to be disturbed by tiny acquisitions like prestige or gain, which is relative to money or physical comfort. Don't allow your attention to be disturbed by that. Tiny acquisitions, prestige, gain, money, physical comfort. Remember, you are trying for the greatest thing. And all other things are very small in comparison to Krishna consciousness. So, don't waste your energy and your valuable time. Be economical. You have the chance to achieve the highest goal of life. Gaur Premanande. Shri Sikshastakam ki jai. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Harinam Samkirtana ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. So I just want to make one point. I remember in the very first time that I saw Srila Prabhupada, 1971, month of June, in Detroit, Michigan, in America. 3 days he stayed, and he gave lecture morning, evening. And I remember one of his lectures where he was looking at this big painting, because in those days the ISKCON artists, they were painting copies of Brijbasi prints from India. And there was a Brijbasi print that depicted Radha and Krishna standing in a garden in Vrindavan, and on both sides were the 8 gopis, 4 on each side. And one was playing tambura like this. Very famous. You've all seen this many times. Yes. So, Srila Prabhupada was looking at that painting, and he was using the painting to illustrate what he was saying. He said, just like we see here in this painting, this is depicting the spiritual world. So in the spiritual world, it is the opposite of the material world. In the material world, everyone is trying to become greater and greater, higher and higher position, like this. But in the spiritual world, it is exactly the opposite. Everyone is trying to become lower and lower. But in the material world, they're trying to become higher and higher. So it is the opposite. In the spiritual world, they're becoming lower and lower. And then he said, by becoming the servant of the servant, of the servant, of the servant, 1,000 times removed. But as they become the lower, they actually become higher. This is the supreme position. And that's why Srimati Radhika is the most humble of anyone. Because this is the highest position in the spiritual world. And one last thing, this famous incident that took place at New Vrindavan. I know it very well. Some devotees who were actually there, they told me in great detail what happened. And some of the local, very low-grade consciousness people who ride in the back of their pickup trucks, they have their shotguns, and they're called rednecks in Western slang. But they made a plan to attack the temple. And they knew that the devotees, at a certain time every morning, the devotees are all there inside the temple room. And that those devotees are barefoot. These Hare Krishnas, they are barefoot. So they made a plan, and they saw the deities. The deities are still there. Radha Vrindavan Chandra. They're some of the first tall marble deities in the whole world. They were installed there. Radha Vrindavan Chandra. And they thought that some of the jewelry on the deities was real gems. But at any rate, they wanted to create a very, very heavy, they wanted to threaten the lives of the devotees. So what they did was they took broken glass from broken bottles, and suddenly, as the devotees were standing in the temple room, they threw that broken glass through the windows, tons of broken glass, so the devotees could barely even move. And then they came in with their shoes, and they actually pulled the deity. And the deity actually hit the floor. Yeah. It was broken, but they repaired. That's one of the few deities. And in the meantime, they took the leader of the Hare Krishna community there, who was named Kirtanananda Swami, they took him up onto the hill. And they forced him to start digging with a shovel, and they were going to bury him in the pit alive. But then what happened was, because those men had shotguns, and somehow or other, one of them shot. He shot. And one of the devotees, I think there was a few devotees, because shotgun has shrapnel, you know. So some of them were hit in their body, and it went inside their body. I know one of those devotees, and later on he died of the lead poisoning from that. But when that shotgun made that sound, suddenly even though they were shooting the shotgun, suddenly all those men, they became very frightened. Krishna made it happen like that. They suddenly became very frightened, and they ran out, and the men up on the hill, they ran down the hill, and they took off into their trucks. So this incident was reported to Srila Prabhupada. This is the first very severe incident in the movement. And when this was reported to Srila Prabhupada, then he said, in every temple of our society, there should be a gun. And there should be a devotee who is trained to use that gun for protection of the deities. And I remember I was in New York temple at that time, and they were training. My dear godbrother Pran Kishore Prabhu can tell you many stories how they were training and training like Kshatriyas. Some of the devotees had that, nature of Kshatriya. So they were training in martial arts and all kinds of things, weaponry. So this is Srila Prabhupada telling, never again this should be allowed to happen without opposition from the devotees. There was one incident in the Nairobi temple in Africa, which also, I was not there, but I was temple president of that temple a few years after this occurred. But the black Africans there, some of them thought the same thing, that the necklaces and so forth on the deities are real jewelry and very, very valuable. And they came in with they also have curved knives there. And a group of them came in, even though there was a paid guard at the gate, but there was a whole band of them, and they just forced their way in and came in the temple, and there was a devotee who was performing artik at that time. He was actually an African-American devotee. And they started to come toward the deities with their knife. And that devotee somehow tried to, with his arms just to stop them. And they sliced into his arm. It went pretty deep, but the arm was not cut off. Later it was sewn and he recovered, but not with full control of his fingers. So when Prabhupada heard about that incident, he commended that devotee for being ready to risk his life to save the deity of the Lord. You see. And there are many other incidences around the world where temples have been attacked and so forth. So we should not think that in this material world everything will always be peaceful. No, at any moment. And even the incident in Mayapur, which I'm not going to narrate, but I was in Navadvip when that took place in 1977. So the very instructive advice that Srila Sridhar Maharaj is giving is that we should be economical. This human form of life, our energy, our valuable energy and time should not be wasted in trying to accomplish these trifling things which require money, physical comfort, prestige, all those kind of things. And he said you should always remember that you are trying to attain the greatest thing that is attainable. And all other things, they are very small in comparison to Krishna consciousness. So don't waste your energy and time, your valuable time. Be economical. You have the chance to achieve the highest goal of life. So we're ending there. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Nitai, Nitai, Jaya Gaur, Jaya Nitai. Jaya Nitai, Jaya Gaur, Jaya Nitai, Jaya Gaur. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Jai Saparikar Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Vinod Bihari Jiu Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Sachidandan Gaura Hari Ki Jai, Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Sri Pancha Tattva Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Brindai Tulsi Devyai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Vsia slavas avravshyam sia priyadanim. Hare Krishna. All glory to the assembled devotees.